Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Umatnaumamate. I froze my psycho neighbor out of her apartment. In college, my two friends and I decided to find a place together off campus. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom house with surprisingly affordable rent. The basement of the house was listed as a separate apartment, but as it had a separate entrance and the indoor stairwell had been blocked off, and the thermostat was upstairs. Then the demon neighbor moved in. From upstairs we could hear everything. This adult woman would call her mother and scream at her to pay for her cell phone bills, and give her grocery money a Taco Bell and cheap tequila. She would scream at whatever guy she was sleeping with to bring her meth, and one day she brought home 3 puppies to scream at too. We were terrified of this woman, and the noise was hell. Also, we'd been idiotic enough to sign a lease stating we were responsible for all utilities, meaning we were now financing her gas, water, and electric. But with only 2 months left on the lease, we thought we could just ride it out. But then she started smoking. Constantly. According to the landlord, she'd quit for good when she'd signed the lease, but for good only lasted 2 days. Since it was winter, the heat was running nearly 247, and the smoke was wafting up from the vents. Our apartment and all our belongings began to reek with smoke. We contacted the landlord because we'd signed for a bloody non-smoking apartment. He told us we lived in a state where you could technically call an apartment non-smoking even if it shared ventilation with a smoking apartment. Fuck you leasing laws. At this point, my 2 roommates were heading out for a 2-week vacation. They were online students, while I was residential, leaving me alone in the apartment with the demon smoker in the basement. I couldn't sleep or eat because my idiotic stomach decided to react to all the secondhand smoke by aching and cramping constantly. After 3 days, I was a little insane. I made a plan. I checked the forecast lows in the 20s all week. I borrowed a friend's ultra-insulated sleeping bag. I bought one of those ski masks with the holes for your eyes and mouth. I got out my stocking cap. I bought tea, hot cocoa, and ramen, and prepared to live off a diet of hot liquids. And I turned off the fucking heat. Day 1, she's screaming at her mother for forcing her to move into this frozen shithole of an apartment. Day 2, she's screaming at her boyfriend, meth dealer, because he won't let her move in with him. Day 3, she's screaming at the landlord about how she's fucking freezing. Day 4, the landlord is at my door. I greet him in full ski mask, parka stocking cap array, looking like I'm heading out to rob Santa Claus at the North Pole. He asks me if I don't find it a little chilly in the house. I reply I'd found all the cigarette smoke a little warm. Day 5, she's screaming about the bitches upstairs to anyone who will listen, and I'm sitting upstairs clutching my car keys and my pepper spray with 911 typed into my phone. She finally decides she's fucking leaving and moving in with Greg, even though he just got out for stabbing Travis, and he lives in that fucking creepy house in the woods with all those asshole-biting dogs. Day 6, she's gone. I silently bless Greg. Moral of the story, there's a bloody reason the rent seems too good to be true. Psst. For those wondering, I did have a friend who worked plumbing stop by to give me some advice about how low I could go before I burst the water pipes to hell and back. This comment is from Jedimeter. That's awesome and an unexpectedly creative way to deal with that situation. This comment is from Dataloing. I thought, wow, all utilities included. Shouldn't be legal to call a place its own apartment if you have no control over the temperature in said apartment. This comment is from Endlesson. Shouldn't be legal to call a place non-smoking if the ventilation can be affected by cigarette smoke from an attached unit, but evidently it is. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. Redneck thinks it's funny to yank out mailboxes. My dad makes him pay. Disclaimer, this happened a long time ago, but still makes me giggle to this day. So way back in the day, mid-90s or so, my family lived in a log cabin on 10 acres of land in a rural area 10 minutes or so out of town. It wasn't totally the sticks, but you could definitely hear banjo music in the background sometimes. At the end of our nearly 14-mile-long driveway was one of those roads that was also technically a state highway. In the end, I'd trudge down to wait for the bus. When I got home, I'd grab the mail and carry it back. Until one Monday morning, when I went out and noticed the mailbox was gone. On closer inspection, looked like it had just been ripped out of the ground. Dad was obviously not pleased. He went to talk with the county sheriff, who happened to live a mile down the road. Turns out it had been happening up. Someone was tossing a chain over mailboxes and yanking them out with their vehicle. He suspected a guy down the road with his great big lifted Ford truck, but couldn't prove anything. Usually happened on Sat and Sun nights, with people finding out in the morning. Also seems the nicer the mailbox, the bigger a target, and many had been hit multiple times. People had tried digging deeper, using more durable wood, etc. The guy just took it as a challenge and ripped them out again. Soft sandy ground, and his truck was a monster. Well, Dad said challenge fucking accepted. A bit about my father. He's a steelworker with an engineering background and graduate degree. Built like a bear with forearms the size of my freaking legs. Most people looking at him would never think this monster of a man is also brilliant, but he is. The calm, cool type that almost never loses his temper. But wrong him and God help you. So Dad goes to Lowe's and buys the fanciest, prettiest mailbox they sell. He then proceeds to install it on top of an 8-foot-long cylinder of 3-diameter hardened tool steel. But he wasn't done there. After digging down with post holers and dropping it in, he then filled it in with Quixote concrete. To really sell it, he then used some strips of 12 wood to cover the steel core of his no-indestructible mailbox of doom. Framed and painted them so it looked like a standard 4-post. And even had my mom decorate it with flowers and such. He wanted it to be as tempting of a target as possible. Didn't even take a week. I went out for school in the morning and found the mailbox right where it should be. Attached to it was thirt of chain and an entire hitch assembly. Ripped right off the truck's frame, sheared the bolts. It was marvelous to behold. Sheriff gets called over, dies laughing when he sees it. He went to the house of the guy that was suspected, and sure enough verified the damage to his truck matched. Fun fact: fucking with a mailbox is a federal crime. As in, you go to federal prison, not those cushy state places. Dad was unofficially rewarded by the sheriff's deputy with a few cases of beer and some venison. And after that, every deputy in town would flash him a thumbs up whenever they saw him. The drive guy was pulling out mailboxes with a chain attached to his truck. Dad makes invincible mailbox. Guy goes to federal prison. Edit: apparently vandalism to mailboxes is far more common than I thought, and other people have taken similar measures. I guess great minds think alike. Edit: too, as many have commented, apparently federal prison is actually a lot better than state. Didn't know that, sorry. This comment is from Aunt to Socialite. That is awesome. Your dad is a rock star. This comment is from Greg Ravernity 6. In my town, buttheads would hit the mailboxes with baseball bats while driving down the road. My neighbor filled his with concrete and waited. That night while we sat on the porch, here comes the local Dumases, and wham! Screech and crash. The driver hit the box, and when the bat came back on him, it knocked the steering wheel out of his hands, and he crashed into a tree, destroying his mom's car. Oops. 2 days later, we see him riding past on a skateboard with his arm in a cast. This comment is from Usernamone. My dad's made 2 invincible mailboxes himself, mostly due to baseball bat incidents. One for the owner of his company's house, and one for the company himself. My dad is a metal worker, a welder by trade. The first for the company was just a giant cage of angle iron cut and welded around the mailbox. That was for the company. Naturally, the owner wanted something better at his house, So my dad made one out of 516 steel. They had some machine that could roll the steel and a press and all kinds of other stuff. It was beautiful, and there was no way a baseball bat would get through it. Every time we went by, he would stop and look and laugh at the scuff marks, imagining the guy swinging full force and hitting solid steel. Ouch. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.